all of us have a whole other dimension of sensory perception that we can access in altered states of mind. And most of us never bother to switch it on. An altered state of mind is a state of mind where you're tapping into the alpha or theta brainwave frequency. This is measurable using a device called an EEG machine. But what is curious about these altered states of mind is that your perception of the world changes. Anthropologists call this perceptual diversity, and almost every indigenous culture in the world has practices that allow them to tap into these altered states. Altered states to put you into flow, altered states to increase your energy, altered states to tap into intuition, and even altered states to, for lack of a better word, bend reality. The Silva Ultramind System is the culmination of 3 decades of work by the legendary mind science pioneer Jose Silva in training people how to consciously tap into altered states of mind, how to consciously slow down your brainwave frequencies to the alpha and the theta level, levels where most people lose the ability to focus or fall semi-asleep, yet you stay awake. And at these altered states, you learn how to channel your mind powerfully to solve any problem that life might throw at you. In Silva Ultramind, you're going to learn the following. You're going to learn how to tap into the alpha level of mind. You're going to go through a powerful programming system called the centering exercise that trains you to get to alpha at first in 15 minutes and then in a mere 30 seconds using specific mental triggers. Once at alpha, you're then going to learn the powerful 3 scenes technique, which you can use for accelerating healing of your body, but also to manifest outcomes, to visualize in a powerful way and make happen your wildest dreams and desires. You then go deeper. You learn how to go to the theta level of mind, where your brainwave frequency is 4 to 7 cycles per second, but you learn how to get there while awake. And you learn how to tap into intuition, the super skill of the theta level. Here, you learn how to hold an object and perceive information from the object. You learn how to project your awareness across time and distance. You learn how to download intuition and creativity so fast that you can give a speech or write a book fluidly. Unlock abilities of your mind that you never knew you had to get into greater flow states, to enhance creativity, to manifest your wildest dreams, to shift reality, and to find a solution to any problem that comes your way. You can enroll in the quest below this video. Welcome to the Silva Ultramind System. My name is Vishnu Lakiani. I'm the founder of Mindvalley. And if you've been using Mindvalley products for the last decade or so, you would probably recognize my name and recognize my work. But what you may not know is that before I was the founder of Mindvalley, I was a Silva Ultramind instructor. And before that, I was a Silva Ultramind student. You see, the Silva Method has been probably the most influential personal growth program in my life. And it influenced me to such a degree that it made me who I am. I am a product of this product. And that's why the Silva Ultramind System holds such a beautiful place in my heart. Now, if you've been in personal growth, you may have heard of the Silva Method. The Silva Method reached the height of its popularity in the 70s and 80s. It was the original personal growth program in the United States. Jose Silva's pioneering work in mind science introduce people to concepts such as the alpha brainwave level, the theta brainwave level. He proved without a doubt that any human being could be trained to develop intuition to the point where they could function psychically at the waking state. Prior to Jose Silva's work, it was believed that only a few rare individuals had the gift of ESP. Jose Silva proved that everyone had it. And even before the word meditation became trendy, Jose Silva was using his techniques to put people into relaxed alpha and theta levels of mind, more on that later, that allowed them to tap into these abilities. The Silva Method grew so big and so popular in the 70s and 80s that in the 1980s, there were almost $100 million worth of Silva tickets sold every single year to seminars happening all around the world. And the graduates of the Silva Method now number in the tens of millions. To understand the power of the Silva Method, I probably have to share with you this story before I come to my own. I'm sure you've heard of the book Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It became one of the classic books in personal growth literature. The book and its author, Richard Bach, became so popular that the book was featured on the cover of Time magazine. But what people don't know is that Richard Bach, the author, was having difficulty completing the final chapters of the book until he took a Silva Method class. In an interview in Harper's Bazaar magazine, he said this, that the Silva Method class helped him figure out and understand the closing of that book. That book went on to sell millions of copies. It became a personal growth classic and got featured on Time magazine. That is the power of the Silva Method. Many other graduates, including myself, have gone on to do remarkable things using the tools that Jose Silva developed. Now, the Silva Method reached a peak of its popularity in the late 80s. And then, as Jose got older and eventually passed away in 1999, the method started to die out. The number of classes and seminars started to dip. But something interesting happened. In around 95 to 96, Jose Silva, on his deathbed, created an updated version of the Silva Method. He called it the Silva Ultramind System. Now, this is what happened next. He wanted to get this updated method out, but there was an established organization teaching the original Silva Method, the original program that had been popularized by the hit book Silva Mind Control, published in the mid-70s. And the organization was not ready for Jose's latest work, Silva Ultramind, because it would disrupt some of their regular business. So they decided to not let it out. Jose passed Silva Ultramind to some of his nephews and close friends, and they decided to create a competing organization called Silva Ultramind. So you had Silva Method, the original organization, and Silva Ultramind. Now this is where I stepped in. My association with the Silva Method started in an interesting way. When I was 14 years old, a Silva Method book fell on my head. What happened was my dad never went to university. He was a self-educated man, and he had this beautiful white bookshelf in his room filled with all the books that changed his life, one of which was the Silva Method book. Now, as a kid, I was really into sports, so I was climbing my dad's bookshelf. This was in the pre-internet days, to pick up a little book on exercise so I could, get my exercise routine together. Accidentally, another book fell on my head. That was the Silva Method book. I picked it up. I browsed through a couple of pages. The cover looked interesting, and the book blew my mind. So I read it cover to cover at the age of 14. That book got me started with meditation. I would then meditate 3 times a day for 15 minutes each. Now, back then as a teenager, I had serious acne. And as you learn later in the course, I used a specific technique in the book to heal that acne. I'd had pimples on my face. My nickname in high school was Pimple Face for 5 years. It shattered my confidence. It didn't make me feel good about myself. I'd never been on a date with a girl. And these pimples just really were an unfortunate blow for a teenager with a really fragile sense of self-esteem. But I read in that Silva book about how Jose Silva had found that the skin was the organ that was most easy to influence with the human mind. So I put in place the Silva technique from that book and taught myself how to heal my skin. For 5 years, I had pimples. In 5 weeks, my acne disappeared for good. My face changed. All of a sudden, I had the confidence to truly step up as a teenager and show up in the world in a different way. And that was my love affair with Silva. That's how it really began. I went on to do some really remarkable things, manifesting some really cool dreams. But then when I moved to Michigan to go to college, as a young kid, I got caught up in all of those other things that young people get caught up in. I stopped my meditation practice. Back in the 90s, it wasn't cool to meditate, not as cool as it is right now. Meditation was the last thing on the mind of an American college student in the mid-90s. And Silva fell by the wayside. Now, I graduated into American society in 1999 when I moved to New York to take a not-for-profit job. I barely graduated, so my grades were not good, so I didn't have the best job options. And finally, it was 2001 that my life started to collapse. I finally had a decent job, but then September 11 hit, and the company I was working for went bankrupt. I was cast out on the street. I couldn't afford rent. I was sleeping on a couch. Worse, I couldn't afford car insurance and got into an accident. And in the Bay Area, you needed a car to get around. And so I was in a broken state, and the only job I could get was a simple job where I had to pick up the phone and dial lawyers and sell them software. I was a computer engineer from the University of Michigan. I had this great degree, but here I was in a miserable economy, in a miserable job, trying to sell technology to lawyers, and I knew nothing about sales. And so I would pick up the phone, I'd interrupt the lawyer in the middle of their busy day, and I would hear more fuck-offs than I would ever expect to hear in my life. I remember getting on Google. It was now around February, March 2002, and I can't remember what I typed in, but it was something along the lines of, please help me figure this out. Or perhaps it was, why does my life suck so bad? And I came across Silva Ultramind. It was now 2002. The Silva Ultramind as a competitor organization, the Silva Method, run by different members of his family, had started to emerge, and they were having a few classes around the country. There was nothing in the Bay Area, so with the few dollars I had, I booked a plane ticket, flew to LA, and took the class. Funny thing was, I was the only person who showed up. It just wasn't popular back then. The instructor, obviously disappointed that she had one student, ran me through the class in one day. I had a compressed version of the class. All the beautiful memories of Silva that I practiced as a teenager came back, but now with the advanced Ultramind techniques. You see, the original program was amazing, but now I was learning the updated program with new ideas, new skills. One of the key ideas in this updated program was waking psychic functioning. The fact that you can access altered levels of mind and perceive information that you otherwise should not have access to. So I finished the class in LA, flew back to San Francisco, and that very next week, I started back on my job. Now, I'm an engineer, and I approached sales back then, even though I sucked at it. I approached it in a very empirical manner. I knew the number of calls I had to book, the number of lawyers that would tell me to fuck off versus who would actually give me a chance to speak for more than 10 minutes. I knew the number of lawyers I would close on a sale, which was hardly any, but I had these numbers. So I decided to try the Silva technique. And now, back then, we would have to go to the San Francisco Public Library, check out the yellow pages of the territory we were assigned, and call every lawyer from A to Z. My territory was San Antonio, Texas. So I opened up the yellow pages for San Antonio, Texas, and I started calling every lawyer. But rather than call them from A to Z, I went to my alpha level of mind, which I learned in the Silva program, and I ran my hands down the phone book, and I would get an impulse of who to call. I called the lawyers for which I had an impulse, and my sales closing rate doubled overnight. So the very next week, I was ecstatic, and I decided to use other techniques that I'd learned in the class. For example, the 3 scenes technique that you're going to learn as well. My sales doubled again. I used other techniques such as the mental video technique. My sales doubled again. In the next 3 months, I got promoted 4 times, and I was 26 years old, and I was made vice president of sales of this company. Even though 4 months before, I had hardly any experience in sales. Silva completely shifted the way my mind was functioning. My career exploded. I was sent to New York on September 11, 2002, the anniversary of September 11, by my boss, because he wanted me to open up his office in New York on the anniversary of September 11 so that he could help contribute to jobs in the city. I used Silva, and I found the perfect office. Again, I used certain techniques to program that I would have the most amazing office space. And the space I got was Chelsea Market. where today's YouTube studios sit. Another huge success from the Silva Method. I was guided into this amazing space. For those of you who don't know, Chelsea Market is one of the most valuable buildings in New York. Google bought it a few years ago for almost $2.5 billion. But back then, in 2002, September, I got to use the Silva technique to program that I would have the most amazing office, and it was in Chelsea Market, where YouTube Studio sits today. So my life completely transformed. Now, I stayed with that company for 18 months before I felt this pull. When you do Silva, you're really tapped in, and it said, I need to do something of my own. I needed to leave this company. And so I decided to leave, and I felt this pull to become a Silva instructor. I never forgot the fact that when I attended my first Silva class, it had changed my life. It had transformed my world, but I was the only student there, and that disturbed me. Why didn't more people know about it? So I became a Silva instructor to spread the word. As I was teaching Silva Ultramind, what happened was, being an engineer, I started building the websites to get people into my classes. These websites became so successful. Other instructors came to me and said, can you help me film my Silva class? And then the Silva Ultramind organization came to me and said, can you help us sell our CDs? And that was the birth of Mindvalley. I cracked the code to building a personal growth platform that could get millions of people enrolled in seminars and programs. And that is how the Mindvalley today, the world's most innovative personal growth company, was born. Now, I continued representing Silva Ultramind for several years. Then the parent Silva company, Silva Method, came to me, and I started representing them. I built up the core programs for the Silva Method. Everything went well for several years. Mindvalley helped take Silva from being in the red to becoming in the black again. And Silva helped give me the tools to channel the ideas to create Mindvalley. It's now been 15 years since that time, and I was honored when the family of Jose Silva asked me to be the new face for Silva Ultramind, to give this program an overhaul, to bring it onto Mindvalley's platform, and to get it out to the world. And that's where we are today. So this was your first warm-up video. I wanted to give you the backstory to understand how the Silva Method, Silva Ultramind, and Mindvalley all became part of the same thing, and how we are all coming together to take Jose Silva's profound work and share it with millions of people everywhere. I'll see you tomorrow for warm-up 2. Anything with the name of Jose Silva as the author has my vote before I open to page 1. Wayne Dyer. Jose Silva was an incredible man, and I remember he was my idol as a teenager because his book completely changed my life. But Jose's story is absolutely fascinating. I won't be surprised if it gets made into a movie sometime. Jose Silva was born in the tiny border town of Laredo. There's Laredo in Texas and Nuevo Laredo on the Mexican border. And this little border town is where there's a massive exchange of goods and people between the United States and Mexico. Jose was really a product of both countries. Now, one day, while being part of the U.S. Army, Jose Silva was going through a routine Army mental health checkup. And that's where he noticed that there was a psychologist who was assigned to ask him questions. It was just a routine thing, but he grew fascinated with psychology, and he started picking up and reading more and more books on psychology. That led him to study hypnosis, which fascinated him. You see, Jose Silva, as a side job, was a radio and TV repairman. He had a little shop repairing radios and televisions in Laredo, Texas. Now, he knew, as a repairman for radios and TVs, that if you take a wire and you increase the resistance of that wire, less electricity can flow to it. If you reduce the resistance of the wire, more electricity flows through the wire. It's basic high school physics, right? But understanding psychology and hypnosis, he started to wonder, is there a form of resistance in the brain? What if we reduce the resistance in the brain? Can our brains operate more efficiently? Now, the path to reducing that resistance, he called it programming or centering. So he would use a specific hypnotherapy script to get people to relax. It was a combination of hypnotherapy and guided meditation, except that back then in the 60s, the word guided meditation wasn't really used. So in his writings, he tends to refer to it as hypnotherapy. Now, he went on further, but the science of biofeedback had started to become popular. Back then, scientists knew there were 4 levels of brain frequency: beta, or the waking level; alpha, or more relaxed level; theta, or slightly sleepier level; and delta, deep sleep. Jose wondered, is the brain moving into alpha and theta a way of reducing that resistance? Now, Jose had 10 kids, and he wanted his kids to do better in school, as most parents did. So he came up with the brilliant idea of experimenting on his children. So he made his kids guinea pigs, and he started experimenting with his kids. Now, I know that sounds bizarre today, but this was the 60s. Certain things were more acceptable. So Jose Silva would put his kids into a guided meditation and then read them important elements from their school textbooks. He found that they could remember better when they were in this alpha or slightly relaxed level of mind with their eyes closed. And then he would ask them questions and they could recall better. Okay, now you'll find that too. When you learn this program, you will learn how to go into the alpha level of mind and increase your reading and your memory speed. Now, we know this today. If you can move your mind to the alpha level of mind, the relaxed level, which you will learn in this program, you can remember and retrieve information faster. So that was what Jose was investigating, but then something curious happened. He was experimenting with one of his children. I believe it was his daughter Isabel, and he would ask Isabel a question from her book. Let's say it was a history book, and Isabel would answer. But the curious thing that happened was Isabel started answering as Jose Silva formulated the question in his mind. Before he could verbally speak the question, she would answer. In other words, he might think the question, who was the 16th president of the United States? But before he could verbally say it, Isabel would answer. This rattled him. What was going on? He was a devout Christian. He couldn't figure out how his daughter was able to so-called read his mind. So he wrote to Dr. J.B. Ryan of Duke University. J.B. Ryan was the famous doctor who pioneered research in extrasensory perception. And he asked J.B. Ryan, he told J.B. Ryan, I think I figured out a way to train children to be intuitive. J.B. Ryan dismissed it. He said, no, intuition is real, but your daughter was probably intuitive to begin with. Jose Silva disagreed. So he trained all his kids. Then he trained the neighbor's kids. And then the neighbors started getting fascinating. What is this man doing to our children? They were scared a little, but at the same time, their kids' grades were going up. So the neighbors came and they said, Jose, can you teach us how to do this? So he started teaching little classes in Laredo, Texas. Now, what he found that it wasn't just intuition that was emerging from accessing these states. People were seeing pain disappear. They were seeing their happiness levels go up. And there was this one chap who had migraines for the longest time. And after learning from Jose Silva, his migraines disappeared. He wrote about it in the local newspaper, and the next class was completely swamped. The Silva Method was born, and it spread across America. Soon, it was being used by the Chicago White Sox. It was being used by famous celebrities of the time, like opera singer Margarita Piazza. It had come into mainstream America, and the New York Times, the Washington Post featured articles on the Silva Method. And that was how the Silva Method was born. Jose went on to write a book which sold well over 1 million copies, and the Silva Method, as it spread globally, ended up graduating some 10 million students over 3 to 4 decades. But the story doesn't end there. There was a point in Jose's research before the Silva Method exploded, and he found a way to actually turn it into a viable business when he found that the work he was doing was so fulfilling, but it wasn't making him any money. And he decided that he had to give it up. He had to go back to just running his radio business. One night, he tells in his biography, he grew so frustrated that he flung his psychology book across the room and decided to go to sleep, promising himself that he would never dabble in this again because he needed to earn a living. That night, he had a weird dream. And he said he saw a figure of the Mother Mary. Now, Jose was a Christian, and he said he doesn't think that it was anything to do with the Mother Mary. It was just his representation of godliness. In other words, if you were a Buddhist or a Muslim, you might see your representation. But the funny thing was, the Mother Mary gave him a 4-digit number. So he wondered, what is this 4-digit number? And the first thought that came to him was, there must be a car with that license plate, and I need to meet the person who owns that car. So Jose Silva decided to keep his mind open for any car in Laredo with that 4-digit number. Now, as it happened, he was going to his radio repair business, and a friend came to him and said, hey, Jose, I'm about to swing south across the border to Mexico to pick up some goods. You want to come with me? Jose said, sure, I'm not having a busy day. I'll come with you. So they got in the car together to drive across the border to Mexico. And as they were driving across the border to Mexico, Jose told his friend about the 4-digit number in the dream. They went to the shop to buy goods in Mexico. And as Jose was picking up his goods, his friend called him over, and his friend said, Jose, look, they're selling a lottery ticket here. Isn't this the number that came in your dream? And it was. Jose bought that lottery ticket, and he ended up winning $10,000. That gave him the amount of money he needed to continue his research. $10,000 back then is almost $50,000 today. That's a lot of money. It allowed him to go back to his research, but it also puzzled him. He said, look at the weirdness that happened. It wasn't just a dream. My mind didn't just give me a number. It showed me an image to reinforce that this was coming from a higher power. It then caused a synchronicity to happen where a friend came to invite me to Mexico because that winning lottery number wasn't on the US side, it was on the Mexican side. Another coincidence happened when my friend happened to see the lottery number. Jose himself thought it was a car license plate number. All of these strung together, it was like a ripple, a warping of reality that gave him the cash infusion needed to take the Silva method forward. And he realized he was onto something. Now, this is an important lesson to you. What you're going to learn here is not just information downloads. What you're going to see is that, and this is harder to explain, but I experience it time and time again in my life, synchronicities, coincidences, luck, moving you towards where you need to go. This is the power of the Silva method, and this is what this program is going to take you through. Jose developed this process from 1953 to 1999. That's almost 50 years of refinement and fine-tuning. He was a guy who never stopped. He continuously refined the program. The work that you're getting emerged shortly before he died. So this is his highest level work, Silva Ultramind. And he tested these ideas on millions of people. Every word you hear in this program was put there for a reason by Jose Silva. In this program, you're going to go through not just lectures, but you're going to go through programming scripts where Jose Silva's words, read by me, are going to program your mind with different abilities. Every word in that script is there for a reason, and the results are powerful. This program doesn't just shape you at a cognitive outer brain level. You're going deep into your subconscious and shaping you at a subconscious level. That is where the power of Silva lies. A lot of people talk about meditation. A lot of people talk about visualization. This was the most structured meditation process I've ever learned. This provided me with some of the ideas I used to develop my later 6-phase meditation, which is used by so many elite sports people and performers. The Silva method is also the most structured method I've ever found to develop intuition and to apply this in day-to-day life. What you're going to learn here is truly one of the most powerful programs ever developed in the entire field of personal growth. So, thank you for joining me for the second warm-up video, and I'll see you tomorrow for warm-up 3. What you're going to learn here is a form of meditation that's different from many other forms of meditation. If you look at meditation, there's passive meditation and active, or sometimes called dynamic meditation. Passive meditation is about introspection. Active meditation is using that introspection to go out there and shake the world and rattle the world and move towards your goals. Both are important. Silva is active meditation. You are never told to clear your mind. In the words of Mind Valley teacher Emily Fletcher, asking someone to clear their mind during meditation is like asking someone to stop their heart from beating. In Silva, you don't clear your mind. You let whatever thoughts come to you and you channel those thoughts towards making a better world. If you have a problem, you turn that problem into a project to resolve. It could be a problem at work that you want to resolve. It could be a family or a health problem you want to resolve. You turn it into a project and you channel your mind to bring that project into reality by leveraging intuition and your ability to bend reality. This is what makes Silva so powerful. Think of this as the concept of the Buddha and the badass. The Buddha is that part of you that is your inner spiritual power. But you don't just want to be the Buddha. This is not India thousands of years ago. We live in the modern world. We have careers, we have jobs, we have missions, we have things we need to bring to the world. The badass is that part of you that isn't going to just live in today's world. It's going to make that world better. You have to converge the Buddha and the badass into one. That's what Silva Ultramind teaches you. Now, the course is going to go through an interesting structure. There are going to be lectures where you're going to learn some powerful advanced techniques and principles of personal growth, and then you're going to go through programming, where you will be programmed, or your mind will be programmed at a deep level of meditation to bring out new abilities of intuition, of manifesting, of deep relaxation. So there are 10 programming modules in this program. We'll go lecture, programming, lecture, programming, lecture, programming over a span of around a month. Now, the 10 programming modules are broken into two types. They are centering exercises and projection exercises. Centering exercises are designed to make you go deep into a deep state of relaxation. Projection exercises are a whole different thing. They're designed to help you project your consciousness, your awareness across time and space to perceive information that would otherwise be unknown to you. The 5 projection exercises look like this. You're going to start by projecting yourself into the living room of your home. Fairly easy. You're going to imagine the living room of your home, and Jose's script, read by me, is going to guide you through a series of different practices to do in your relaxed meditative state. You're then going to project into something a little bit more complex, into different types of metals, then into something even more complex, a plant, then into animal life, then into a human being who needs healing. That final projection is where you learn to perceive abnormalities of health in other human beings and to apply healing on other human beings. That is one of the most powerful uses of intuition to receive information, and then using your mind to shift and bend reality. In this case, to give healing. It's going to be a fascinating journey. Now, traditional Mind Valley programs happen over around a month and are 20 minutes per day. This program, because of the nature of the projection exercises and because I wanted to stay true to Jose Silva's work and his scripts, sometimes might go on to 30 minutes. Okay, so be prepared to spend a little bit more time, but know that when you come out of these projection exercises, you are going to feel so magnified, so refreshed. You can go back to work and do more in less time. So it's actually buying you time. There's an old saying that practice makes perfect. I don't believe that. You can meditate for years and you can still be a sloppy meditator. What you're going to learn here is a perfect way of practicing, going into deeper levels of mind, tapping into altered states, leveraging these tools to do remarkable things in the world. Perfect practice makes perfect. And as you go through this, you will be transformed consciously as you gain new knowledge and ideas, but also subconsciously as these programming techniques shift the capabilities of your subconscious mind. This is truly one of the most powerful subconscious programming tools I've ever encountered. Thank you for joining us for Warm-Up 3. Tomorrow in Warm-Up 4, we're going to go deeper on the concept of brainwave states. Welcome to Warm-Up 4. Today, we're going to talk about one of the core principles of the Silva Method, which is the levels of brain waves. So today we call these altered states. My good friend and Mind Valley author Stephen Kotler says that in most of modern society, we are trained to exist in one state of consciousness, and that is the beta or waking frequency. Now, this is actually something you can measure, and hospitals do this all the time when they hook you up to an EEG machine, an electroencephalograph. The beta frequency is where your brain is pulsing at around 14 to 21 cycles per second. This is the frequency that in the modern world we are trained to use. But if you actually look at many indigenous cultures do not exist in a monophasic type of awareness. They exist in polyphasic awareness. In other words, when you're polyphasic, you are leveraging different states of being. For example, I spent some time in the Ecuadorian rainforest with the Achua tribe. This is a dream tribe, and we find dream tribes in many rainforests around the world. The interesting thing about dream tribes is the Achua communicate with each other during their dreams. They wake up at 4 a.m., gather around a campfire, and talk about what messages came to them in their dreams. The Achua don't just discuss their dreams, they communicate through dreams. Two members of the Achua may be across the rainforest. They have no telephone, they have no way of communicating. They were only discovered by the modern world in 1979, but they're able to communicate across distance through dreams. It is a fascinating thing. But what's going on there is that they are tapping into the delta and theta level frequencies. To do this, this is what we mean by polyphasic. Now, what we are learning in modern science is that when we move to be able to tap into the alpha level of mind, we gain incredible benefits. Now, what is the alpha level of mind? It is the brainwave frequency that you go into when you meditate. So sometimes people are confused by meditation. What you're really doing when you meditate is you're slowing down your brainwave frequency from beta, which is 14 to 21, to alpha, which is 7 to 14. That is meditation. And all the benefits of meditation are coming when you slow down. This is what Jose Silva was trying to do. In Silva classes, this diagram is often shared. You will see that the beta frequency, which is the center column, is 14 to 21 cycles per second. This is the physical world. Sight, smell, sound, taste, touch. When you go to the alpha, or what is called your center, hence the word centering exercise, your brain waves, if you were to measure them, are operating at 7 to 14. Now, your alpha or your center is the mental world. It's subjective. It's ESP. There is no time or space in your mental world. This could be one of the reasons why phenomenon like psychic ability are sometimes observed. This is one of the reasons why Jose Silva saw that number that caused him to win the lottery. But you can slow down your brain waves further. You can slow it down to the theta level, which is 4 to 7 cycles per second. And theta is associated with strong psychic ability. You can slow down even further to delta. This is the level of sleep. And delta is associated with connection to higher intelligence. Now, most people are asleep at delta, but what you will learn in this program is how to access not just alpha and theta, but how to go all the way to delta. The first 3 exercises of this program are going to guide you into alpha. The next 3 exercises are going to guide you to theta, and you will also learn techniques to do before you go to bed to leverage the delta level of mind. So, once again, beta is the outer conscious level, alpha is the inner conscious level, delta is unconscious, but there are ways to leverage delta to solve problems. And for this, you will learn a technique called the mental video technique, which is the most important technique in this entire program. That said, know that in 1993, another brainwave frequency was discovered by researchers at Harvard. It's called the gamma frequency, and they observed it studying monks who had been meditating for decades. Gamma is when your brain is moving above 21 cycles per second. It's a highly rapid frequency. But today, scientists are still not fully in agreement on what exactly is going on in gamma. So for the purpose of this program, we will not be discussing gamma. But know that brainwave frequencies are far more complex than that specific approach. What we're doing here is just a simplification, so you have an idea of what we're going to be doing with you in the program as we reference alpha, theta, and delta. The good thing about Silva is that even if you just use the centering exercise and meditate and go to your center, the range of benefits you get is extraordinary. For example, check out this curve. This is from Daniel Goleman and Richard J. Davidson's book, Altered Traits. You can see that beginning in the 1970s, research in meditation started taking place, but the research went up exponentially after the 2010s. Meditation has exploded all across the world because now science has shown a remarkable array of research on the benefits you get from meditation. So you will get those same benefits doing this program, but we'll go beyond just basic meditation to teach you active meditation so you can use altered states, alpha, theta, delta, to shift reality. So you've now learned all the basics to get you started with the Silva Ultramind System. I can't wait to see you on the chosen start date for this program. Get ready for one of the most incredible journeys of your life. And I thank Silva for everything I've built in life. This was really my starting program in personal growth. And I don't mean starting as in basic. It was just so advanced. It completely blew my mind and it made me who I am. The fact that I today get to say I run a company that's about to go public. The fact that we have an office that was in Inc. magazine as one of the top 10 most beautiful offices in the world. The fact that I have my own festivals around the world and I have a job that makes me so happy getting out of bed every morning is because all of it started in here. And I used the Silva Method to guide me to making the right decisions. And when I knew what those decisions were, I was able to use these tools to shift reality, to move me towards these visions. And you're going to experience the same. So thank you so much for joining us here. And I want to ask a small favor of you. If you have taken a Silva Method class in the past and you're now coming here to go further in your learnings of Silva, I'd love to hear your story. Go to stories.mindvalley.com and share your story. Click the button to share. Upload your story under Silva Ultramind, and I cannot wait to share your story with other members of our community. Once again, that's stories.mindvalley.com. I'll see you shortly in the program.